So today we're going to talk about a global phenomenon that literally started from the back of a motorcycle. We're talking about Noraly Schoenmaker, but you probably know her as Itchy Boots, a solo adventurer who's built this massive media empire, all while living on the road. Let's dive in. First, let's just try to wrap our heads around the sheer scale here. Noraly has written over 190,000 kilometers by herself. I mean, to give you some idea, that's like riding around the entire planet at the equator, more than 4 times. And yeah, we're not talking about a simple road trip on a nice, smooth highway. Those kilometers have taken her across more than 80 different countries. We're talking everything from treacherous Himalayan passes to vast African deserts, all of it solo. And you know what? A journey like that, it gets noticed. With over 3 million subscribers on YouTube, Itchy Boots isn't just some travel diary anymore. It is, without a doubt, one of the largest adventure travel channels in the entire world. Which really brings us to the big question here, right? How does this even happen? How does a successful geologist with a stable career just throw it all away, reinvent her entire life, and build a global brand from scratch with basically just a GoPro and a motorcycle? To really get the Itchy Boots story, you have to know about the world Noraly left behind. And believe me, it was a life of structure, science, and success. And it couldn't be more different from the one she lives today. Just look at this. This slide lays it all out. The insane contrast at the heart of her story. On one hand, you've got her ordinary world. A master's degree in geochemistry, a great career managing huge international projects. And on the other, the call to adventure. A really painful personal crisis that just blew that whole world apart and forced a total, complete reset. And look, this isn't us just reading into things. These are her own words. The entire Itchy Boots journey, this thing that inspires millions, was born from a really tough, painful place. This wasn't some grand career move. It was a lifeline. So, with her old life basically in ashes, Noraly heads to India with a brand new plan. But here's the thing. The whole Itchy Boots phenomenon we know today, it almost didn't happen. You see, her first shot at this new life wasn't on YouTube. It was a blog. She started a website also called Itchy Boots to write about her travels. The problem? It totally bombed. I mean, she was making next to nothing, and her savings were just disappearing fast. And this right here is where everything changes. While that blog is failing, she rents a Royal Enfield motorcycle up in the Himalayas and just rediscovers how much she loves to ride. That was the spark. So she bought her own bike, decided, hey, maybe I'll try video instead. And with absolutely zero experience, the Itchy Boots YouTube channel was born.
And what happened next? Well, nobody could have predicted it. This pivot, this plan B that was born out of a failing blog, it ignited a fire that would grow into this massive, completely accidental media empire.
Okay, check out this growth. In just 1 month, she hits the subscriber number she needs to even make money on YouTube. After 5 months, her first paycheck was a tiny 150 euros. But then, boom, by the end of her first year, she had 150,000 subscribers. And from there, it just went vertical. So what was the secret sauce? Why did this work so well? Well, first, she was just radically authentic. She showed herself falling down, getting lost, making mistakes. People connected with that. Then there's her work ethic. It was relentless. One day writing and filming, the next day editing. And the storytelling was completely raw. No crew, no script. And this is huge. In the beginning, her whole journey was funded by fans sending her small donations for gas. That built an incredibly strong bond. So because of this really deep connection she built with her audience, Noraly was able to do something amazing. She turned this passion project into a real, sophisticated, and seriously successful business. And when I say business, I mean business. We're talking an estimated net worth of over $2.5 million. This is not a hobby anymore, folks. It's a multi-million-dollar brand built by one person on the road. And here's the really smart part. She didn't just rely on YouTube ads. Not at all. She diversified like a pro. She's got major brand sponsorships, her own line of merch. She sells online courses teaching other people how to do what she does. And she even became a best-selling author. All right, let's actually break down the money here. This table gives you a pretty good and probably conservative idea of her annual earnings. Each one of these is a business in itself. When you add it all up, you're looking at a potential income of well over $1 million a year. It's a seriously impressive operation. But look, a journey like this, it's never a straight line. And her biggest test, the thing that almost ended it all, wasn't a tough border crossing or a busted engine. It was a devastating crash that threatened everything. Imagine this. These are her actual words from her own camera moments after a really bad crash in Tanzania. She's alone, she's seriously hurt, broken collarbone, and she is quite literally in the middle of nowhere. This was probably the most terrifying moment of her entire journey. So the crash forces her to end her Africa trip. She goes home, spends months in a painful recovery. There were even complications, like a punctured lung during surgery. It was bad. And after all of that, after everything, she got back on the bike. I mean, if that doesn't sum up her entire spirit, I don't know what does. You know, that kind of resilience doesn't just come from nowhere. It's fueled by something deeper, something she learned out there on the road that's become the real philosophy behind her entire journey. And this, for me, is the real heart of the whole Itchy Boots story. Through all the breakdowns and the falls and the lonely roads, she learned that she could trust people, that no matter where she was in the world, no matter how bad things got, someone would help. Her journey was never just about the motorcycle. It's always been about people. So that kind of leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? Noraly's entire, incredible, world-changing adventure was sparked by her lowest moment. It really makes you wonder, what amazing journey might be waiting for you on the other side of your biggest challenge?
We're talking about a guy who had a high-flying engineering career, a stable life, and gave it all up for a life on the open road. He's become this incredible, unlikely ambassador for peace and connection, all from the seat of his motorcycle. So let me just start by asking you this. Would you do it? Would you trade that secure, well-paying job for the complete uncertainty and thrill of an adventure? Because the person we're talking about today, he did exactly that. And his story is, well, pretty amazing.
I mean, just look at this contrast. On one hand, you've got Abrar Hassan, the engineer. We're talking over a decade in Germany's auto industry, a master's degree in a super technical field, a good, stable life. Then, on the other hand, you have Abrar the adventurer, a world traveler who's been to over 90 countries, with his videos seen more than 500 million times. It's just a wild transformation, from a life of precise calculations to a life completely on the move.
Right, so how in the world does a mechanical engineer end up on a motorcycle in the middle of nowhere becoming a YouTube star? Let's unpack his story. Abrar's journey actually starts in Nankana Sahib, Pakistan. He studied aerospace engineering, and then in 2008 he moved to Germany, where he built a really successful career. But here's the thing, underneath that engineering brain, there was always this deep, deep love for the outdoors. As he put it himself, he was just crazy about mountains and travel. And this whole philosophy was never just about showing you cool places. He wanted to bring you with him on the ride. That's why he chose to vlog in Urdu, his native language. He felt that authenticity would create a much stronger connection, a real sense of community with the people watching. So how did he actually make this happen? Well, it was basically this three-step leap of faith. In 2019, he quits the job. Big move. Then he launches his YouTube channel. And in 2020, he goes all in. He learns how to ride a motorcycle, the very thing that was about to change his entire life.
And that commitment, that motorcycle, led him straight to the journey that would really put him and his channel on the map.
He set off on this absolutely epic solo motorcycle tour, all the way from his adopted home in Germany back to his birthplace in Pakistan. This trip just blew up online. And it wasn't just because of the incredible scenery. It was because of the amazing warmth of the people he met every step of the way. And that's really the key to everything he does. The real power of that trip wasn't in the mountains or the deserts he rode through. It was in the handshakes, the shared meals, the stories he traded with total strangers. That became his whole mission, to show that the true story of a place isn't in the news headlines, it's in the faces of its people.
Building on that exact theme of connection, he then took on what might be his most symbolic journey to date, a friendship tour all across India.
I mean, think about this. A journey covering 7,000 kilometers.
And he did it all in just 30 days.
This was so much more than a road trip. It was one single, unforgettable journey. Really, it was an act of public diplomacy on two wheels. And despite all the historical tensions, he was welcomed with open arms, and he used his channel to show his Pakistani audience the incredible culture and people of India.
And as he finally crossed back into Pakistan at the famous Wagah border, he shared this powerful thought. It just perfectly sums up his entire mission, to use his travels to build bridges and help us all imagine a world with fewer walls.
But his mission didn't stop there, not even close. Abrar's journeys have since taken him to pretty much every corner of the globe. He's ridden from Pakistan all the way to Saudi Arabia for a 50-day spiritual pilgrimage. He's explored the African continent from Kenya down to South Africa, and right now, he's on a massive tour of the Americas. You know, his videos from places like Israel and Palestine are some of his most watched, which just shows how committed he is to finding common ground everywhere.
So what is the actual impact of all this? What does it all add up to? Well, let's call it the wild lens effect.
To really get his impact, you have to understand this one term, destination image. It's basically the mental picture, the vibe that we all have of a country, and it's a huge factor in whether or not we ever decide to actually go there.
And hey, this isn't just a hunch. There's real research that confirms it. Studies have shown that travel vlogs have a direct and really significant influence on how we see other places and where we ultimately choose to spend our money. They are incredibly powerful tools for shaping that destination image.
And Abrar's reach is, well, it's massive. We're talking over 2.2 million subscribers. His videos have racked up more than 503 million views from his travels across over 90 countries. That gives him a giant global stage to reshape those stories on a huge scale.
So, at the end of the day, his authentic person-to-person storytelling is actively challenging negative stereotypes. He's showing a completely different side of places like Pakistan, one that isn't defined by news headlines, but by incredible hospitality, stunning beauty, and real, genuine human connection.
Which kind of leaves us with one final thought to chew on. In a world that so often feels fractured and divided, maybe, just maybe, the simplest tools, a camera to share a point of view and a motorcycle to cross a border, are actually the most powerful instruments for connection we have.
We're exploring the world of a modern-day adventurer. We're going to look at what it really takes to travel across continents on a motorcycle, not just as a tourist, but as a storyteller. And let's start with a guiding principle from the man at the heart of our story, a travel vlogger who goes by the Umar. He has this saying, "What is a journey without hardship?" And that idea, that the challenges are actually what give a journey its meaning, that's what this is all about. So it really makes you wonder, right? In an age where we have GPS in our pockets and we can talk to anyone, anywhere, what does it even mean to be an explorer anymore? Well, we're going to find out by following the incredible journey of one guy who tried to answer that very question. Okay, so let's meet him. Our story starts with the Umar and his absolutely massive goal, to ride his motorcycle solo all the way from his home in Kashmir to the Middle East. And that was just the start. His real dream was to see the whole world. I mean, just look at the plan. The logistics alone are kind of mind-blowing. This wasn't some last-minute trip. It was this huge, multi-stage, intercontinental expedition. He had to ride to Mumbai, get his bike shipped to Dubai, and then start the long ride to Mecca for the Umrah pilgrimage. And believe it or not, that was all just step one. But you know, an adventure this big, it always comes at a price. As he was leaving, the weather turned, and it started to rain. But the real storm was an emotional one, saying those tough, tearful goodbyes to his family and friends. You know, the people who are your anchor. Now, this journey wasn't just personal. It was public. And that brings us to the whole world of vlogging itself. What's the driving force here? Is it just pure passion for the adventure, or is it about promotion? It's a question the whole vlogging community is wrestling with. For the Umar, a huge piece of this was mentorship. He always talks about how much he learned from his idol, another well-known vlogger named Abrar. And when he got to Dubai, he finally had this dream come true moment where he actually met the person who inspired his entire trip. It just goes to show you it's not always a solo thing. There's a real community behind the camera. But that community, well, it also has its debates, big ones. Take the Pakistan Tourism Summit back in 2019. They brought in all these big-name international vloggers to promote the country. But a lot of people started asking, hey, what about the local Pakistani creators who've been showing off their own country for years? It sparked this huge conversation about what travel vlogging is even for. And this really gets to the heart of it. On one side, you had the local vloggers saying, look, we do this for our own people, out of a genuine love for our country. But on the other side, the summit organizers were like, we need the international guys with their massive global audiences to actually boost tourism. It's this really interesting tension between who your audience is, what your intention is, and what your impact is. And Pakistani vlogger UK Hano just hit the nail on the head. He said, the goal isn't just to get famous or get validation. For a lot of these creators, the real drive is to make a meaningful impact. And the Omar's journey, well, it becomes a perfect example of what that can actually look like. And making an impact often means going through some serious hardship. So this brings us back to the Umar's journey and the unbelievable, often unseen struggles he faced on the road. It really proves his own point. A journey is defined by its hardship. I want you to just imagine this for a second. You're in Iraq, thousands of miles from anyone you know, and for almost 3 weeks, you were completely stuck. Not because your bike broke down, but because of paperwork. Red tape. He couldn't move forward into Iran, he couldn't go back, he was just trapped. Can you imagine the mental toll of that kind of uncertainty? It's immense. But honestly, bureaucratic problems are nothing compared to the personal trials that were coming. While he was in Jordan, he left his motorcycle with a new friend he'd made, a doctor named Hussein. He promised him, "I'll be back and we'll ride together." It was one of those amazing bonds you forge on the road, a plan for a future adventure. So, 4 months later, he finally makes it back to Jordan. He's ready to reunite with his bike, ready to see his friend, and he's hit with the most heartbreaking news imaginable. Hussein had passed away unexpectedly. The friend he was so excited to see, the one he'd planned new adventures with, was gone. When Hussein's family took him to see his motorcycle, it was perfect, spotless. His friend hadn't just kept it safe, he'd washed it, cleaned it, and even filled the tank with gas, getting it ready for his return. And the Umar, just overwhelmed by this final act of friendship and by the grief, he could barely speak. All he could manage to say was, "I can't speak now." So you have to ask yourself, after all of that, the bureaucracy, the loneliness, the absolutely devastating personal loss, why? Why would you keep going? And the answer is right here. The reward isn't about getting to the final destination. It's about the power of human connection, which you so often find in the most unexpected and sometimes the most difficult of places. I mean, just look at his visit to the Gaza refugee camp in Jordan. He didn't just drive by, he went in. He showed the tough reality. Over 60,000 people, homes with leaking roofs, 10 kids sleeping in a single room. But he also made a point to show their incredible resilience. People learning skills like phone repair in vocational centers, trying to build a future for themselves. And then you see this incredible contrast. In Iraq, a country so many of us misunderstand, he stops for gas. And a total stranger not only pays for his fuel and refuses to take any money, but then insists he come share a meal of traditional dolma with him. He wasn't treated like a tourist. He was welcomed like an honored guest. So, after all that, what does this tell us about the road ahead? What's the role of the modern explorer in the world today? You know, maybe we need a new way to think about this. Not just vlogger or influencer. Maybe something like digital ethnographer fits better. Someone who's using all these modern tools, not just to show you a pretty place, but to document culture, to share what life is really like for people, and to build some genuine human understanding. And at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about. Through all the tough times and all the amazing connections, a simple road trip becomes something so much bigger. It becomes this profound exploration of what it means to be human. Which leaves us with one final thought to chew on. In a world that feels so connected by technology, but so often divided by everything else, maybe these raw, authentic personal stories are the most powerful tool we have. Maybe these journeys of hardship and connection are exactly what we need to start bridging our cultural divides.